Pablo, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Joe, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Evening. JP, good to see you as well, brother. How you doing? Evening. How you been? Good evening, Miles and all CMF. Let's go, JP. Evening, mate. Pure, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Comatose, hello, Miles and CMF. Good to see you as well, Comatose. How you doing? How you been? Come on, good to see you as well, brother. How you doing? How you been? Okay, there's been quite a few things that's been happening essentially, and today we're going to talk about tonight's live. So we're obviously going to talk about the US and Ukraine essentially agreement because it's quite major news regarding the US and the Ukraine essentially come to some sort of an agreement regarding their minerals. It's going to give the US that edge it needs pretty much over the Chinese market space, you could say, because the US needed access to some sort of new minerals for all the electronics they're going to be, producing or manufacturing inside the US to compete with the Chinese market space. So this deal is actually going to create a lot of jobs inside the United States of America. It's also going to boost the US economy over time, without a doubt. So it's incredible news that has happened today, which we're going to be covering on tonight's live. We're also going to be covering some other things that's happening in terms of the banking space when it comes to crypto space on tonight's live as well. We're also going to be covering news regarding companies that are going public. Blockchain companies that are going public. We're going to talk about something interesting that's happening with Trump's media company, or essentially Truth Socials, something that X, a lot of people were expecting X to do, that it turns out Truth Social is going to beat it to, the podium, you could say. Now, a lot of things to essentially go through on tonight's live, but before we go through any of those topics, just want to say, welcome to the CMF Live. If you're watching this for the first time ever, the CMF stands for Crypto Miles Family. My name is Miles, and essentially in this live, I always talk about the most recent news that's happening around the world in terms of cryptocurrencies, CBDCs, AI, politics, and regulations. Pretty much everything you need to know about the world transforming to this digital future. The disclaimer of this live, as always, is not financial advice, not political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. And also, we do Q&As on this live as well, which means if you do have any questions, put it down inside the comment section. More than happy to answer any questions you may have. Now, before we go through the first news on tonight's live, let's go to the comment section first. I just want to take a second also to say that for everyone that from the CMF that is watching right now who has essentially liked this live, thank you so much. If you haven't done that, CMF members, please like, retweet, and put a comment outside the live if you're watching this on X. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you so much to everyone who's liked the live and also put a comment as well. Now, let's go to the comment section first before we go through the first news on tonight's live. So let's see where we were at. We were here. Shelly, morning, Miles of CMF. Good to see you as well, Shelly. How you doing? Morning. How you been? Is it true that Ripple wants to buy Circle? Pure, yes. It turns out it could be true. We're going to cover that later on tonight's live, but it seems like, yes, it has some truth to it regarding Ripple wanting to buy out Circle. I think is a great idea for Ripple to be able to, essentially buy out Circle. They can bring that liquidity over to the XRP ledger eventually. But it hasn't been confirmed. It's just staying as, sources in between that are claiming this matter. Even brother Miles and CMF, funky brother, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Golden Dragon, hi Miles and family, good to see you as well. Golden Dragon, how you been? How have you been? I've been doing great, funky brother. How you been? How's things? Now, first news on tonight's live is regarding US and Ukraine essentially setting this 50-50 partnership that's just happened between them. This should give, essentially the market space the confidence it needs to move forward once the deal is essentially officially on paper signed and, done deal. Because the data did come out today regarding the US. It had a very, very minuscule GDP loss rather than a GDP growth. which is why the stock market started to climb downwards and the crypto market followed it. So here it is. US and Ukraine essentially set to be a 50-50 partners in shared minerals deal after a shift essentially from Trump. Ukraine was expected to sign a mineral deal and a profit-sharing deal with the United States today evening in Washington, following 2 months of essentially testing negotiations. Previous versions of the deal presented by Donald Trump's negotiators insisted that Ukraine pay back the aid that the US had given it over the last 3 years for their essentially war against Russia. The latest version, according to Ukraine's prime minister, essentially no longer makes that demand. Mr. Schimmel essentially said that the reworked agreement has become a real partnership deal, which essentially considers future US aid as a part of the contributions to a joint investment fund. Yula, Ukraine's first deputy prime minister in charge of economic affairs, was essentially heading to DC today to sign that deal, which according to the head of Ukraine's Parliamentary Foreign Affairs Committee will be in 2 essentially parts. The deal does not mention Ukraine's liability for their past aid spent, which is the $300 billion that the US has sent to them, which essentially Mr. Morox said was a victory. President Trump had previously demanded the $300 back in payments on the US contributions to the defense of Ukraine, which in fact essentially has been about $130 billion since 2022. Both countries, Ukraine and the US, will be equal parties in the sharing of investments and equal share in resources of Ukraine. The profits for the first 10 years for both countries will be spent on essentially rebuilding Ukraine's infrastructure and local investments. He said that there would be no taxes on US part of the funds and no tariffs on Ukrainian minerals exports to the US. The key issues of Ukraine's security appears to have been addressed by references to the Budapest Memorandum of the 1994 documents signed by China, Russia, Ukraine, the US, and UK that guaranteed Ukraine's security when it gave it up essentially its vast nuclear arsenal. There is essentially hope that by having US investments in Ukraine, the Trump administration will see this as a halving skin in the game and take the defense of Kyiv more seriously. So essentially, so far this year, Mr. Trump has taken strongly pro-Russian lines and adopted many of Kremlin's demands as his own, essentially prescribing the terms of ceasefire. The agreements will have to go before the Ukrainian parliament for if there is any sort of edit work to be done, but it seems like it is signed. Mr. Mosik also said that he was likely to support it, but wanted to see the details of the first phase of the agreement and the extent to which it essentially would result in greater security for Ukraine. Other Ukrainian sources said that they thought the US would have to express interest in Ukrainian securities because that would be essential in getting backing of President Zelensky. The first phase of the deal has also dropped previous American demands to control Ukraine's essentially infrastructure. The softening of the US position through the essentially negotiations may have been helped by a hard line taken by Vladimir Putin over ceasefire talks. Ukraine has reportedly offered an unconditional 30-day or more ceasefire and talks brokerage essentially behind closed doors with Washington. Putin, meanwhile, has refused the offers and demanded ceasefires in areas where he has vulnerabilities, notably the Black Sea. The deal is unlikely to affect Putin's offer of a 3-day ceasefire to mark Russia's celebration of victory over essentially Germany, the Nazi Germany. It does, however, represent a shift in attitude of Trump's administration to Ukraine. Mr. Zelensky has already said that he would back a 30-day ceasefire from May 8th, but he believed that the Russian proposal was a stunt. So, seems like US and Ukraine are finally on the same page, but it's beneficial for the US because it has now the minerals it would pretty much need to be able to compete in this digital infrastructure world we're heading towards. China has a lot of minerals and a lot of engineers and innovators and developers. US needed a lot of minerals, which they just got now, which means given a little bit of time, the markets will react in a positive way on this deal because the market did react slightly negative today based on the GDP loss that the United States had, but perfect timing on the Trump deal because the US is now going to be having a GDP growth rather than a loss. Honestly, perfect time what Trump has achieved. This is going to have a positive effect on the essentially stock market, and it's also going to have a positive effect on the crypto market because Bitcoin does still tend to follow tech stocks. Minerals from Ukraine equals to the US manufacturing in terms of technology. Technology stocks go up inside the US. Bitcoin follows technology stocks. Bitcoin goes up, crypto goes up with it. That's the link. Now, what we're going to be talking about next is Eric Trump. So keeping on the Trump news. Eric Trump has just came out and made a statement. Interestingly enough, it's a very, very similar statement to what somebody else said 2 years ago. So this is what Eric Trump has said today. Banks must embrace crypto or disappear in 10 years' time. I said essentially something very similar to this 10 years ago, where I said if banks don't essentially adapt to blockchain technology, then they'll eventually go bust. It's pretty much what he has said. So he said the current financial system is broken. It's slow and expensive, which is facts. Eric Trump declared an interview with CNBC today, adding that the current banking system favors the super rich. He said, it drove me into a world of cryptocurrencies, he continued. And he said, I'll tell you, if banks don't keep an eye out on what's coming, they're going to be extinct in 10 years. Emphasizing essentially the need for banks to keep a close eye on developments in crypto industries. Eric Trump highlighted the benefits of the blockchain technology behind cryptocurrencies to the financial systems. He trashed existing solutions for cross-border transactions, such as the Global International Messaging Network, SWIFT. Eric Trump trashed SWIFT payment system, which, by the way, SWIFT payment system has been trying its best to get involved in blockchain technology. But to Eric Trump, SWIFT is still useless no matter what, even if it does enter blockchain, which is often criticized for its turtle-like transactions. He said there is nothing that can be done on blockchain that cannot be done better than the way current financial systems work. SWIFT essentially is an absolute disaster, he stated. With the advent of cryptocurrencies, traditional payment instruments such as SWIFT risk losing market share to decentralized alternatives. Eric Trump said, you can open the DeFi app right now. You can essentially open any cryptocurrency app and send money wallet to wallet instantly. No additional cost, no essentially variabilities. Eric Trump's warning comes aimed at a backdrop of many global banks still resisting the adoption of cryptocurrencies. With Italy's finance minister stated that US stablecoins pose a greater threat to tariffs, which essentially we discussed yesterday regarding Italy's central bank feeling a bit left out essentially from this whole blockchain space. Trump's new prediction is in line with his previous bold predictions about cryptocurrencies. In December 2024, Eric Trump predicted that Bitcoin would essentially, somewhere down the line, will reach a price point of $1 million, while global governments and institutions would have to embrace cryptocurrencies to compete in a rapidly growing essentially market space. It's true. Honestly, everything that Eric Trump has said is, in my point of view, pretty much facts. It's also something that I said about 2 years ago. I said if banks or essentially any institutions don't embrace cryptocurrencies, they're going to get left behind. And if these banks and institutions get left behind, then they're eventually going to go bust because they enter the game way too essentially late regarding blockchain technology. But yes, it's facts. The funniest part or the best part was where he trashed SWIFT. And he said pretty much, no matter what SWIFT does, it's still going to be a disaster. I agree also. Now, moving on from what essentially Eric Trump said to Galaxy Digital. Galaxy Digital is quite a big blockchain company that's decided to go public. A while ago, we talked about Galaxy Digital going public. We talked about some deadlines, that the possibilities of going public and so on. So here it is, Galaxy Digital to list on the NASDAQ on May 16th, announces, essentially this announcement comes from the CEO, Mike Novoscott. This move follows the approval of the company's registration statement, a significant milestone that paves the way for expansion inside the US market space. The listing essentially is on the shareholders' approvals of proposed recognitions and essentially of the company from the Cayman Islands to Delaware. A special shareholder meeting is scheduled for May 9th, 2025 to finalize this paperwork. If approved, Galaxy Digital will operate under the new Delaware essentially based holding company, Galaxy Digital Inc., making the NASDAQ listing possible. Mike Novoscott expressed optimism about the development, saying the listing will allow Galaxy to better serve investors across both the digital essentially asset space and the AI ecosystems on the stock market, unlocking the company's next phase of growth. Currently, Galaxy Digital is listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange essentially under the ticker GLXY. Shares will continue to trade on the TSX during this transition period. Over-the-counter shares essentially will be converted into the NASDAQ listed GLXY shares once the recognition is completed. This move is expected to raise Galaxy's profile among US investors and enhance their regulatory essentially alignments as it positions itself as the forefront of the growing digital essentially financial space and artificial intelligence sector. So it seems like once again another blockchain company is entering essentially the stock market, which essentially about 2 months ago we discussed the matters of Wall Street essentially coming out and saying that they're preparing and they want to help any sort of blockchain companies that want to go public, which just shows the institutions want blockchain companies to connect to essentially the traditional financial space, which is great to see. It also shows once again crypto is maturing, it's moving away from a speculative space, and that blockchain companies are going essentially public. It's also an AI company at the same time. All of this is positive news for the market space. It shows us once again we're maturing and we're not going backwards in blockchain, we're actually going forwards. Now, something that X, or a lot of people essentially perceived X would do. For the longest time, there has been talks inside the crypto space about X and Elon Musk. And the talks have been, is X going to create its own crypto token? Is X going to create its own crypto wallet? Is X going to become a blockchain platform? It seems like one social media platform is about to beat X to that podium. And it's Trump's company. Trump Media is exploring a utility token for its ecosystem. Trump Media and Technology Group, TMTG, the parent company of essentially Truth Social, has announced plans to introduce a native utility token and a digital wallet. The move is aimed at supporting its monetization strategy across its growing media and financial ecosystem. The announcement was made in a shareholder letter ahead of the organization's 2025 annual meeting. Essentially, in the document, TMTG reaffirmed its original mission to provide an uncensored alternative to mainstream essentially social medias. As a part of this vision, the firm has already launched Truth Social, essentially Truth Plus, a streaming service designed to host family-safe content. To support monetization, the company affiliated essentially with the US President Donald Trump revealed it's exploring the rollout of a utility token integrated with Truth Digital Wallet. As a part of our rewards program, we're going to be exploring the introduction of a utility token with a Truth Digital Wallet that can initially be used to pay for Truth Plus, essentially subscription costs, and later be applied to other products and services inside the Truth essentially ecosystem. The wallet and the token will be integrated into Truth Social and Truth Plus, offering essentially a built-in payment option for users. TM and TG also essentially intends to enhance the former with premium features linked to the letters, essentially membership, such as verification badges, scheduled posts, editing tools, expanded character limits, and longer video uploads. It seems like Truth Social is becoming a blockchain platform. At the same time, Trump Media is expanding essentially into the financial services with the creation of Truth essentially .fi, a division focused on offering America's first branded investment products. The corporation also plans to launch a separately managed accounts of SMAs and ETFs tailored to customers. and a collaboration with essentially Index Technologies Group, Yorkville America Equities, and Crypto.com. To fund its blockchain ambitions, TMTG announced it will allocate up to $250 million, essentially, and from its 777 million cash reserves. This includes direct investments in Bitcoin and other crypto assets, as well as a support for the development of its utility token and wallet infrastructure. Meanwhile, Trump media continues to pursue mergers and acquisitions to diversify its business interests, while also addressing concerns over essentially alleged naked, essentially short sellings of its DJT stock. The firm has also essentially initiated legal action against media outlets, claiming the defamation that negatively impacted its brand and market valuation. The company has also confirmed plans to, in terms of in Florida, citing the state's pro-business, pro-freedom environment as more of a working essentially space in its long-term innovation and financial goals. So, seems like somebody has beaten X to the #1 place. Truth Socials, it's a platform similar to any sort of other social platform like X, for example. If anybody does use it, it's mostly American citizens that do use Truth Socials. Now, I have downloaded it as well previously in the past, but I don't use much of it. But I support Trump in his ventures, to be fairly honest. He is the best president the United States has ever had, in my point of view. But in general, Trump has just shown once again that he is essentially pro-blockchain. His own media company is about to be creating a Trump wallet alongside a Trump token that could be used in the Trump ecosystem. It's great news, because it shows to the rest of the world that, you know, the president of the United States is heavily involved in blockchain technology, that even his own companies are creating blockchain wallets. Now, what we're going to be talking about next is Visa. But before we talk about Visa, let's go inside the comment section first. As I said previously, this is live, which means if you do have any questions or even statements to make, put it down inside the comment section. More than happy to read any questions you may have. So let's see what's going on inside the comment section first before we go straight into the Visa news. Evening, brother Miles and CMF. Funky brother, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Hi, Miles and family. Golden Dragon, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Good evening, Miles and CMF. Manny, good to see you as well. How you doing, Manny? How you been? Greetings, Miles. Lena, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Callie says, good evening, Miles. How's things going? Things are going great. Good to see you as well, Callie. How you doing? Troy says, hello, Miles and CMF people. Let's go, Troy. Mike says, well, Mike doesn't say anything because we're going to block Mike. Hi, Miles and family. Alex, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Now, CMF members, can you do me one favor? Inside the comment section right now, CMF members, inside this comment section, can you flood the chat with a fire emoji if you want to, a thumbs up emoji, a rocket emoji if you want to, because I don't want, you know, when people coming to this live, the first comments they read is from Ness, who's an absolute moron. I don't know why someone would put a comment like that, or from Mike, who's also a moron. Why would you put a comment like that? So, CMF members, can you do me a favor right now? If you could just flood the chat right now, this chat, flood it with thumbs up, fire emoji, rocket emoji, whatever you want, any emoji you want, just flood the chat. So these two comments on the first comments people get to see when they come inside the live. And from now on, if you do see essentially people commenting, you know, something quite moronic, just flood the chat with emojis so their comments essentially disappear. It's not the first comment everybody gets to see. So CMF members, just flood the chat with emojis. Now, evening, Miles of CMF. Ray, good to see you, brother. How you doing? How you been? Let's go, Ray, for flooding the chat with emojis. Now, Visa. While everybody's flooding the chat, let me give you the next news. Thank you so much to everyone who's flooding the chat right now. Thank you, CMF members, for flooding the chat. Absolutely amazing. Now, Visa. Honestly, I appreciate so much to everyone who's just flooded the chat. Thank you so much to everyone from the CMF who has just flooded the chat, because now it looks so much better than what it was for those two moronic comments. Now, Visa and a particular, essentially, company have come together for one reason in particular: blockchain technology. Visa and Bridge partner to make stablecoins accessible for everyday purchases. Visa essentially and Bridge are partnering to launch a stablecoin linked Visa card for seamless crypto-backed payments. Visa and essentially Stripe own stablecoin platform. Bridge announced plans to launch a stablecoin linked Visa, aiming to make essentially crypto-backed payments as seamless as traditional card purchases. The new product enables essentially fintech developers to issue Visa cards that draw essentially from the stablecoin balances, with just a single API integration. Initially essentially launching in 6 Latin American countries, Visa has launched this essentially blockchain payment system in 6 Latin American countries. These countries are Argentina, Colombia, Ecuador, Mexico, Peru, and Chile. The program allows consumers to pay with stablecoins at over 150 million Visa essentially accepting merchants worldwide. Users can fund their cards with stablecoins, which Bridge converts into local fiat currencies at the point of sale. Merchants receive payments in their local currencies without any exposure to cryptocurrencies. This is a massive way to unlock essentially for developers, said Zach, the CEO of Bridge. Everyone already knows how to use cards, and now everyone will be able to tap and use stablecoins. Visa's chief product officer, strategy officer, Jack, emphasized the company's goal to integrate stablecoins more securely into global network payment systems, providing more financial options to consumers when it comes to blockchain. Developers using Bridge will be essentially able to manage card issuance and funds movements programmatically with support from lead banks as the financial partner. The product is expected to expand beyond Latin America to Europe, Africa, and Asia in the coming months, as interest in stablecoins-based payments continues to grow globally. So, Visa, just like MasterCard, a few nights ago on this live, I revealed that MasterCard has expanded its reach when it comes to the blockchain sector, and they're going to be launching a payment system regarding stablecoins and a few cryptocurrencies that can be accepted at all MasterCard accepting merchants around the world, which is quite a lot of them. Visa has introduced something similar to MasterCard, where Visa essentially merchants and Visa essentially businesses can accept payments, crypto payments from their consumers, which once again, it shows that the crypto space is maturing and we are moving from the speculative sector. Now, moving on from what Visa has launched. By the way, Visa also launched a partnership with banks to launch some sort of a crypto bank card as well. When I say banks, I don't mean actual banks. What I mean is the DeFi platform BAANX. Now, CBDCs. Something that we haven't talked about in a while, you could say, up to a certain extent. So it seems like CBDCs is once again all the rage, because it is going to be happening. As much as Trump has said, essentially, Trump's administration has cancelled out CBDCs, but in a way, it technically wasn't, because they said that the Federal Reserve can't create the CBDC. They never said anybody else can't do it either. So here's the thing. Open source blockchain drives CBDC development worldwide. Open source blockchain are essentially being utilized for central bank digital currencies, CBDC developments globally, with key initiatives noted as April 2025. This growing trend highlights the importance of innovation and security in central bank digital currencies, promoting a widespread interest from major financial institutions. The Open CBDC project at MIT Media Lab collaborates with the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston on Project Hamilton. This initiative essentially advances an open source code base for strengthening privacy and financial equity. As Jesse Kay, essentially the lead at MIT Media Labs, stated, the Open CBDC project aims to engage central bankers, policymakers, and academics in collaborating essentially in terms of technical research to advance privacy when it comes to CBDCs, or user agency, innovation, and financial equity in digital currency systems. As I've said previously, there is no chance of privacy on CBDCs. CBDCs are mainly designed for tracking purposes. The same way somebody would essentially get a pet, like a dog, for example, and put a tracking device essentially on their dog, is the same way CBDCs are going to be used on humans. The simplest way to put it. Prominent organizations like Digital Euro Association and essentially IBM are actively exploring open source technologies for CBDCs. This effort aims to provide a more secure alternative to cryptocurrencies. IBM highlights central banks' interest in CBDCs as secure alternative to crypto. Open standard ensures essentially interoperability, encouraging broader institutional cooperation. Just want to say this, IBM is a very, very mega big partner of Ripple through Mexico, which is a Ripple-owned company. Blockchain technology ensures essentially of the speed and the safety of transactions when it comes to CBDCs. Historically, decentralized cryptocurrencies posed challenges for regulatory bodies, where governments would have difficulty trying to control the DeFi space. But when it came to CBDCs, it was much more easier for governments to be able to control it and maintain it. CBDCs are backed by governments and represent a modest shift towards government-backed digital financial systems. Past CBDC projects faced hurdles similar to essentially early cryptocurrencies. Governments' backing lends credibility to new efforts. Experts are suggesting that open source CBDCs may set new standards, placing innovation and regulatory control. Data-driven approaches predict increased compliance and security within digital currency landscapes. So as you can remember, it said that essentially, inside the United States, they weren't allowed to go towards essentially CBDCs or create CBDCs or so on. And I said they're going to either way. No country is going to get away from CBDCs. CBDCs is something that's going to be happening worldwide. Guaranteed. Every country will eventually have a CBDC in one way or another. They will either launch wholesale CBDCs and retail CBDCs at the same time, or they will launch wholesale CBDCs first to get the business around you to accept CBDCs, and then the retail CBDC comes, or they'll release retail CBDCs first and then release the wholesale CBDCs next. But either way you look at it, CBDCs are going to be happening. As you can see, the Federal Reserve of essentially Bank of Boston is involved inside the United States with MIT essentially creating CBDCs. And this year, we're going to have quite a bit of CBDC releases, to be fairly honest. One of them is Europe. And if every country comes out with a CBDC, which 98% of centralized banks are in, America has no choice but to join the bandwagon of CBDCs. Now, Matt Hugan, Bitwise's CIO. We've talked about essentially Bitwise's CIO for a bit in these past few days. We talked about how essentially he said that Bitcoin can reach tremendous price points. He also said essentially the crypto market space is heading towards a bullish movement where more institutions are coming towards cryptocurrencies. He also said the more Trump essentially puts pressure on China, the more the Chinese investors themselves will drop their Chinese stocks and go for alternative assets to hedge against inflation in China. A lot of things have been discussed by Bitwise's CIO, and it's all been positive for the crypto space. And this one is another positive step. So here's what he said. He said a $10 trillion boost is headed towards essentially Bitcoin ETFs by 2025. This is what he said. The institutional adoption of Bitcoin is entering a new era, according to Bitwise's CIO, which is essentially Chief Investment Officer. He said the four largest U.S. essentially wirehouses, Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley, Wells Fargo, and UBS, are likely to grant full access to spot Bitcoin ETFs by the end of 2025. These financial giants manage a staggering $10 trillion in clients' assets combined. While some of these firms currently offer essentially clients a full rollout across all essentially accounts, it would mark a essentially transformative movement for crypto investments inside the United States. The illusion of essentially in conclusion of Bitcoin ETFs on major wirehouse platforms means exposure to a broader base of investors who previously lacked simple or approved methods to access Bitcoin. For advisors and high net essentially worth clients seeking regulated investments options, this move could open new floodgates for Bitcoin, but also cryptocurrency ETFs that are heading our way as well. The CIO of Bitwise believes that as essentially more traditional institutions embrace cryptocurrency ETFs, net inflows could surge to record highs. With essentially more investors gaining trust in essentially Bitcoin as a long-term asset or cryptocurrency ETFs, inflows could become a major force in driving market momentum further higher. Access to a spot Bitcoin ETFs through household financial names like Wells Fargo and Morgan Stanley signals a mainstream acceptance of cryptocurrencies. It's not just a win for crypto, it could reshape the portfolio allocation models across the industries. The timing also aligns with the growing demand for regulated digital asset products and increased essentially confidence after the SEC approved several spot Bitcoin ETFs early this year. If the predicted rollout happens, we could see billions of dollars flow into essentially crypto ETFs, setting the stage for a new phase of institutional-driven growth. Now, the Chief Investment Officer of Bitwise Asset Management, regarding his forecast of the big four US wirehouses will offer Bitcoin ETFs by the end of 2025, he said the introduction of these Bitcoin ETFs at major US banks could significantly drive institutional crypto adoption much more higher than anticipated. And he said it should essentially surpass the $35 billion in ETF inflows achieved in 2024, potentially reaching $50 billion by the end of 2025. The primary assets impacted will be the spot Bitcoin ETFs, including well-known names like BITO and FBTC, alongside the underlying Bitcoin itself. Matt Hugan also essentially notes that if these predictions hold true, the ripple effects would extend to other ETFs, crypto ETFs, in the American market space. The industry's historical patterns show surges in demands and prices during similar institutional entries, suggesting a transformative period. He said, I still expect Bitcoin ETFs to set a new record for net inflows this year, despite pulling just $3.7 billion so far in 2025 in terms of Bitcoin ETFs, compared to the $35 billion it pulled in 2024. He said that institutional access to crypto ETFs could redefine the landscape of cryptocurrency investing, shifting more focus from retail to institutional investors this year especially. According to Roberts, the head of digital assets at BlackRock, there's already a notable trend towards institutional engagements in cryptocurrencies. Hugin's insights indicate that essentially impending period of growth and robust market essentially expansions, blustering both Bitcoin and potentially other essential crypto ETFs. Analysts are essentially watching closely for legislators and regulatory developments that might impact these areas even further. The evolving landscape of stablecoin legislations and more perceived banking stances are promising indicators also. What he's referring to is essentially all the banks that are pro-cryptocurrencies right now. Yesterday, we talked about essentially Bank of America's CEO who did say that, essentially he's waiting for the regulations. His bank is ready to even introduce a stablecoin of their own. The evolving landscape of stablecoin legislations and more perceived banking stances, as these factors align, there's an expectation for accelerated build-out of institutional-grade infrastructure in the crypto sector, possibly catalyzing an unprecedented era of crypto adoption. So once again, Matt Hugan has come out essentially and said that the banking institutional era of cryptocurrencies is upon us, and it's going to be happening. More money is going to be coming in from institutions this year, especially. We're going to be seeing Bitcoin at new heights. We're going to be seeing crypto ETFs that do get approved at new heights this year as well. And he said much, much more bigger names inside the institutional sector are going to be joining the blockchain sector this year. Also, he said that the banks are very keen on traditional financial space connecting to the blockchain financial space, which is facts. The banks are very keen. So is Wall Street, to be fairly honest. Everything he has said, I essentially approve of 100%. Now, one thing everybody needs to know about right now is that Ledger. Now, in the past, there has been some situations where Ledger might have become compromised due to email situations, or even once from within, where essentially employee of Ledger uploaded the wrong file. There is a new scam going around, which everybody needs to be aware of inside the crypto space, especially if you hold a Ledger wallet. If you hold an alternative wallet like Tangent or essentially any other cryptocurrency wallet, this could also apply to you, and you should be looking out for it. So scammers are getting quite intelligent, you could say, where they're essentially finding out what your house addresses are through these platforms. And they're sending out letters pretending to be companies of essentially cryptocurrency wallets you own, and telling you that your assets have become compromised and that you need to move them out. So if you are somebody that's holding essentially a Ledger wallet or any other cryptocurrency wallet, and if you receive a letter through the post, through your door, which states Ledger at the top and has the Ledger logo, it has all the essentially qualities you would think that this might be a genuine Ledger letter. In reality, it's just a scammer posing to be from Ledger. Because scammers realize texting essentially people, it started to catch on, where people inside the crypto space don't click on random links. And then scammers decided to essentially email people, which also people caught on to the idea of scammers are emailing people, pretending to be essentially these companies or these exchanges. Now, scammers are sending letters to your houses. And people will open up these letters and it would say Ledger at the top, and it would say your assets are essentially vulnerable and they need to be moved out to these wallet addresses and so on. And some people might actually fall for it. So here it is. Fraudsters are targeting Ledger wallet users through physical letters, leveraging data that was leaked back in 2020 on their data breach essentially from Ledger. The compromised data includes names, addresses, which scammers today are using to pose as Ledger representatives. For insights, for example, Jacob essentially discussed the cryptocurrency insights on Twitter, and Ledger reached out and said, yes, these letters are not genuine. The scheme involves sending official-looking letters asking for wallet recovery phases, essentially which grants full access to the victim's assets. Ledger confirmed that these letters are essentially completely a scam and that people should not be falling for it. The fraudulent letters essentially have affected the crypto community's sense of security, causing essentially some sort of a widespread concern. Users are advised to remain vigilant and verify requests for personal information directly with trusted services. As I've said previously before, if you receive an email or a text message or even a letter in this case, and you want to know essentially if it's genuine, contact the company directly. So if you receive a letter, for example, from Ledger and you're unsure, it could be a genuine letter from Ledger, it could be essentially a scammer's letter from Ledger, contact Ledger directly. Go to their website, contact them directly. If you receive a Tangent letter, do the exact same thing. Any letter or email or text message you receive from a crypto exchange, a crypto wallet that you may own, verified by going to the actual source itself. Do not click on any links. Do not share your information. Do not share anything with essentially any of these letters or emails or text messages until you have verified the information. And first of all, no exchange and no cryptocurrency wallet company is ever going to ask for your seed phrases. Always remember that. If anyone ever asks for your seed phrases, they are not from the official company and they are in fact scammers. Entering the recovery phrase essentially into a non-ledger platforms risk total asset loss. Protecting one's wallet access credentials is critical to preventing financial damage from scams. Their insights essentially has come out. While no systematic issues have been reported, individual victims face significant financial risk. These essentially, those that are using Ledger wallets must treat any recovery phrase request as potential scams. The broader implications may include increased scrutiny over essentially how companies handle cryptocurrency customer data and potential technological innovations to bolster security measures. Community essentially awareness campaigns could mitigate such risk in the future, and Ledger's official Twitter has said Ledger will never ask for your 24-word recovery phrase. If someone does, it's a scam. Facts. If you ever receive a message from anyone on Telegram, on WhatsApp, on a text message, or even essentially on an X page, if they're asking for your seed phrases, they're scammers. So please be careful. New scam going around. They're sending letters to your house now, pretending to be from a blockchain company. Now, Canada is what we're going to talk about next. A Canadian company has decided to make a quite large purchase of one particular crypto asset. And that one particular crypto asset is Solana. Sol Strategies Inc. entered into an agreement with ATW Partners to establish a financing mechanism for purchasing up to $5 billion in Solana tokens. This undertaking will support through convertible notes, essentially beginning with an initial $20 million issuance. They're following the exact same footsteps MicroStrategy left behind. The footsteps that MicroStrategy has left behind for purchasing Bitcoin to boost up your company is the exact same footsteps that essentially this company is taking, but they're doing it with Solana. Now, we talked about this company a while back ago when it was just a simple idea, but it seems like they're fast forwarding from a simple idea to initially making moves on this. The company aims to stake these tokens via validation nodes, sharing essentially the results rewards with their followings. Scheduled for May 1st, 2025, the first settlement awaits. Standard settlement conditions. Leah, the CEO of Sol Strategies, has essentially been instrumental in the shift towards Solana since her appointee in 2024. According to a representative from Sol Strategies Inc., we have signed an agreement with ATW Partners to establish essentially convertible note financing mechanisms of up to $5 billion for purchasing Solana tokens. The move reflects the company's growing confidence in the Solana blockchain ecosystem. In light of this acquisition, industries and market analysts essentially are speculating potential market shifts. Immediate effects include increased liquidity and heightened attention towards Solana, potentially influencing its price stability and growth trajectory. The news has also triggered reactions from other financial entities. We are now closely monitoring the situation. Market observers view Solana Strategies investment as a daring move, underlying essentially Solana's prominence among newer blockchain technologies. Sol Strategies Inc. entered into an agreement with ATW Partners to establish that, and it's going to be happening no matter what, is what they said. But they also said May 1st, scheduled for May 1st, is going to be happening unless the deadline gets pushed. Leah, in light of this acquisition, industries and market analysts are speculating this is one of the largest financial commitments by any company towards a alternative crypto asset. Typically, it tends to be Bitcoin, but this time around, it's Solana by a single entity, highlighting its potential market influence and setting essentially a precedent for future blockchain investments. This is one of the largest financial commitments to Solana by any company, and Solana holds a market cap of $75.38 billion at a current price of $145.61 per coin, according to CoinMarketCap. Today, Solana has shown zero essentially positivity towards this news. The reason why the crypto market and the stock market have shown essentially not much of a movement towards the upside, but rather towards the downside, is because the news that was essentially released regarding the data of the United States, regarding their GDP growth, was actually at a loss. The United States had a slight, very, very minuscule slight loss of a GDP growth, which caused the stock market to tumble a little bit, which the crypto market followed its footsteps. But that was bound to happen due to essentially Trump's tariff plans, which is in the long term actually going to fix the US economy. And regarding this new deal essentially Trump has done with Ukraine today, it's going to create a lot of jobs inside the United States. It's going to give the United States the option to compete with China in terms of technology as well in manufacturing. Now, moving on essentially from this one company that's decided to go headfirst into Solana to CZ. we haven't heard much about CZ for the longest time. CZ was somebody that essentially, in my point of view, was an absolute genius inside the crypto space. And CZ has popped his head out of the woodworks once again, and he's mentioned a few things. Some people might agree with CZ on what he has said, and some people might disagree. Depends on where you stand inside the crypto space. And what I mean by that is this. CZ calls for a revolutionary utility amidst the uselessness. CZ has came forward and basically said that one side of the crypto space is utility, whereas the other side is complete useless. It's completely useless. It has no utility. But what he's referring to mostly are AI projects. So CZ, the influential founder and the former CEO of Binance, recently dropped a truth bomb at the Token 2049 event, blockchain event in Dubai, shaking up the conversations around crypto AI. He said, his stock assessment, a staggering 99.99% of current crypto AI projects are, in his words, useless. This isn't just a casual observation. It's a powerful call to action for the industry to pivot towards building applications with genuine, tangible utility. CZ has pretty much called 99.9% of crypto AI projects useless because he's referring to the idea that AI technically doesn't need crypto to be attached to it. Where there can be a time where AI utilizes essentially cryptocurrencies for payments, that's fairly, essentially understandable. But what he's referring to is the random AI crypto projects that pop up every 5 seconds who claim to be the next ChatGPT. And in reality, they're just trying to sell tokens to people so then they can dump on them, which is why CZS came out and said that 99.99% of AI crypto projects are useless. Speaking to a packed audience, CZ essentially didn't mince his words. He highlighted a significant disconnect between the hype surrounding AI integration into crypto and the actual value being delivered. While many projects are quick to slap AI onto their name or token, very few are leveraging artificial intelligence in ways that truly enhance the user experience, improve efficiency, or even solve real-world problems within the crypto ecosystem. CZ points is clear. The industry needs to move fast. Essentially, the industry needs to move past speculative token launches and fueled by buzzwords and focus on creating actual AI-powered tools. That platform essentially necessary functions. So CZ, in the simplest words, is fed up with the idea that every blockchain project that comes out, somehow they just essentially slap on the words AI. They call their project, for example, AI Ferrari or AI Doge or AI essentially whatever. And in reality, they're not actually AI projects, but they're just doing that to leverage the name and the hype of the word AI to bring in investors into their project, then for them to be dumping on their own essentially following. CZ's point is very clear on that matter. That is just buzzwords people are using inside the crypto space. The critique comes at a time when essentially the intersection of AI and blockchain is essentially a hot topic, attracting essentially significant attention and investments. His comments essentially serve as a crucial reminder that innovation must be grounded in utility, not just potential. So if most existing essentially AI projects are useless, what constitutes as a useful crypto AI project? So CZ has provided some bullet points of what he sees as a actual crypto AI project in his eyes. So he said, enhanced customer support. AI agents capable of providing intelligent, context-aware support to users navigating complex crypto platforms, resolving issues efficiently, and offering guidance. Or proactive risk monitoring. AI systems that can analyze vast amounts of on-chain and off-chain data to detect fraudulent activity, identify security vulnerabilities, and alert users or platforms to potential risk in real time. These are things that CZ says essentially AI projects should have if they want to be linked towards cryptocurrencies. Then it could be seen as a viable project, whereas 99.9% of them are actually useless and have no utility. These examples point towards AI being used to tackle specific operational challenges within the crypto sector, improving safety, accessibility, and user satisfaction. It's about AI as a functional tool, not just a marketing label. Despite his criticism of the current state, CZ remains optimistic about the long-term impact of AI in crypto. He believes that artificial intelligence will fundamentally transform how users interact with blockchain and decentralized applications. Imagine a future where AI agents act as personal crypto assistants, managing portfolios, executing complex trading strategies based on user goals, and providing personalized market insights. He said AI enhances the security of smart contracts through automated auditing and vulnerability detection before deployments. AI streamlines compliance processes for businesses operating with digital assets. AI also improves the efficiencies of decentralized networks through optimized essential resources, allocations, and consensus mechanisms. This is essentially what he's saying AI is going to be heading towards. The utility projects, in terms of AI projects, is going to be heading towards in the future, where essentially AI takes over your entire portfolio. AI will trade for you. AI essentially will store your cryptocurrencies. AI will make purchases for you using cryptocurrencies if you want to purchase a home or whatever else you might want to purchase. But in other words, AI will become your personal concierge, your personal accountant when it comes to the financial sector. The potential applications are vast when it comes to AI and blockchain, ranging from improving trading algorithms and market analysis to enhancing security protocols and automating complex tasks on the blockchain. The key, as CZ emphasizes, is building agents that perform these functions and essentially effectively and reliably. CZ's critique at the token 2049 serves as a crucial, essentially, wake-up call while the AI crypto holds immense promises and the current landscape is cluttered. Look, I agree with CZ 100%. There is too many crypto projects that pretend to be AI crypto projects, when in reality, they're just using buzzwords, as what CZ has just said, where they essentially slap on AI next to their crypto project name to give it that boost of an AI image. And a lot of people inside the crypto sector would go towards those projects because they see them as new AI crypto projects, when in reality, they're useless. As what CZ has said, 99.9% of AI crypto projects are actually useless, and they're not what essentially they seem to everybody's eyes. Now, moving on from what CZ has said at the blockchain event in Dubai to global demands. Apparently, global demands for non-dollar stablecoins are growing. Now, this is a perspective coming from an executive at Fireblocks. But what she's actually referring to is mostly regarding some Asian countries, but also the European Union. Europe has mentioned multiple times that they want to be ahead of the race when it comes towards this blockchain stablecoin sector, where even, in fact, the stablecoin version of USDC, EURC, is actually bringing quite a lot of liquidity compared to what USDC is bringing in from the European market spaces. Europe is very focused on Euro stablecoins and Euro CBDCs and anything to do with Euro blockchain. The same way America is very focused on America first. It's actually great to see countries focused for once on themselves. And this is all because of Trump. Trump has made America first. Every other country is trying to make their own country first as well. Brilliant move. So here it is. Governments outside the US, including Singapore, are increasingly interested in stablecoins not tied to the US dollars, despite their essentially currently limited liquidity. Fireblocks' director of policy, essentially, D, told Cointelegraph at the blockchain event, the same blockchain event that CZ attended and made a big speech. She made a speech and said, also in an exclusive interview, she said it described the competition with dollar-pegged stablecoins as all about sovereignty. She compared the situation to earlier tensions between governments and US payment giants like Visa and MasterCard. She said now we're seeing the same dynamics with stablecoins on a smaller scale for now, but they're essentially definitely emerging as a new arena for sovereign concerns, she said. According to D, dollar-pegged stablecoins operating in the European Union are already having a massive headache, particularly from essentially central banks. Even though they're essentially compliant and regulated, they're having a fixed pushback. The European Central Bank is increasing pressure to accelerate the development of digital euros, citing concerns over systematic impacts of dollar-linked, essentially stablecoins within the eurozones. The Bank of Italy, also, which we discussed, essentially has said that they want something more focused on Europe's market movements in the blockchain space rather than essentially this USDT movement. Stablecoin market capitalization is dominated by USDT and Circle's USDC, according to DeFi Llama. These two coins combine for a $210.9 billion, or about 87.2% of essentially the $241.8 billion market cap for such tokens. In fact, all 10 of the top stablecoins are pegged to the US dollars. For D, the situation is similar to previous conflicts between governments and US payment giants that essentially were announced, like Visa and MasterCard, and said now we're seeing the same dynamics. And D also essentially added that the United Arab Emirates is definitely ahead in its regulatory thinking of stablecoins. She cited essentially the Abu Dhabi as an example, noting that the Emirates does not essentially require stablecoin issuers to be licensed locally, unlike the regulatory approach in Europe. D also explained that Abu Dhabi's approach to conducting essentially its due diligence on global stablecoins and decide whether local exchanges can offer them is far reasonable approach to give local businesses access to global liquidities and payments. And in December 2024, USDT was essentially approved and recognized as terms of virtual asset in Abu Dhabi, followed by USDC's Circle. Meanwhile, Abu Dhabi's institutions are collaborating on the launch of a regulated dirham-pegged stablecoin, which we discussed essentially on yesterday's live, if I'm not mistaken, regarding essentially United Arab Emirates creating their own essentially stablecoin. Not the government itself, but a few banks are creating their own different version of stablecoins, which I did say if every bank around the world decides to create their own version of a stablecoin, they're just going to become novelty items. In reality, that's only going to be used by their client base, because the bank that they may do or conduct some sort of business with might not hold their bank's currency, which could cause issues and problems, which will essentially be going back to the SWIFT payment system. This is why, as I said previously, XRP is just a better asset, because banks can hold any currency and use XRP as a medium of payments. Whereas if every bank creates their own stablecoin, then some banks, if they want to do or conduct any sort of international payments, they would have to be holding their own currencies and their banking systems to be able to conduct any sort of business. So it just causes a multitude of confusion. This is why XRP is just a better play than banks creating their own stablecoins. Now, moving on essentially from what D has mentioned regarding the market space and regarding essentially stablecoins at the blockchain event in Dubai alongside CZ, regarding essentially Europe trying to take the lead in their own stablecoins, of a European stablecoin rather than an American stablecoin, to Trump. Trump's advisor has came out and said that the blockchain race of who's going to become number one when it comes to blockchain, who's going to become the capital of cryptocurrencies, is very, very similar to the space race, which was which country is going to make it to the moon first. Now, putting aside some people might believe, or some people might not believe, that the moon race was real and that the US did make it to the moon, and the speech about one step for mankind and so on was real. Some people might disagree that America did not land on the moon. Some people will agree, and so on. Putting that to one side, the analogy he's trying to make is true. The analogy that essentially Bo Hinnens, the executive director of the President's Council of Advisors of Digital Assets in the United States, the analogy that he's making is true. Every country is trying to, the majority of countries are trying to aim to become the capital of cryptocurrencies. And in his eyes, it's like, back then when it was which country is going to make it to the moon first, or which country is going to produce the studio version of who makes it to the moon first. But here it is. Bo Hinnens, the executive director of the President's Council of Advisors on Digital Assets, has said that countries in the global crypto space is becoming something like the space race to build their own crypto reserves. Bo Hennings also confirmed that the government is moving swiftly to establish a strict Bitcoin stockpile and a crypto digital asset. In a recent interview with Bitcoin magazine, the White House crypto advisor stated that countries around the world are quietly working to collect a Bitcoin as a long-term asset, emphasizing that America's aim is to take the lead. According to him, the administration is collaborating with Treasury Department to audit current Bitcoin holdings and design a budget-neutral acquisition methods. He also clarified that no signal, essentially policy approach is being pursued. Instead, multiple strategies are being explored to determine the most practical and efficient path forward. Bo Hennings expressed confidence in the US Treasury Department and the Chamber of Commerce to develop extremely creative ways to accumulate the flagship cryptocurrency. The initial objective is to begin the process quickly, prioritizing speed and scalability, with additional steps to be introduced in the phases to come. The crypto advisor has previously cited tariffs implemented by the president as a potential means for building federal Bitcoin reserves. When essentially asked about how much Bitcoin the US wants to acquire, Bo Hennings referred to it as a silly question, implying that the government has plans to hold more of the digital assets. Reflecting on the first days of his administration, the 29-year-old essentially highlighted early actions taken on the President Trump, including executive orders signed during his first week in the office. The directive essentially created an interagency working group, officially ended what is essentially widely known as was Operation Choke Point 2.0. This includes the Securities Exchange Commission, SEC, who was dropping key lawsuits. Now, Bo Hennings has stated that the US is positioning itself to become that crypto capital of the world, aligning with America's, essentially, President Trump's broader vision to make America the most attractive destination for innovation when it comes to blockchain technology. The former Republican nominee was essentially appointed in January 2025 to the newly formed crypto advisory group and serves alongside crypto CEOs David Sachs. Although he has acknowledged the existence of other digital ecosystems, Bo Hennings emphasized that the main focus is on Bitcoin due to its uniqueness. He also referred to the cryptocurrency as digital gold, describing it as a commodity, not a security. Trump's advisors referenced its essentially origins and the concept of essentially how Bitcoin was created, a term previously used by David Sachs to show its intrinsic value when it came to cryptocurrencies, or Bitcoin in this sense. So, Bo Hennings, the crypto advisor for Trump, has came forward and did an interview and pretty much said that the race, essentially, all the countries that are entering this blockchain space, aiming for the capital of cryptocurrencies, they're creating some sort of Bitcoin portfolios or cryptocurrency portfolios, and he said that it's genuinely becoming a race of who gets there first, and he's referring to the space race. Cryptocurrencies went from a space nobody wanted to touch, from the institutional sector to the government sector to the retail sector, to now cryptocurrencies becoming the space race. That is promising. Very promising. Now, what we're going to be talking about next is something probably a lot of people wanted to know about, which is the news regarding Ripple acquiring Circle true or not? The thing is, it hasn't, as far as I'm aware, been confirmed in any sort of a way, and it's just sources claiming that they made such a acquisition to buy out Circle, and that Circle rejected this acquisition because it was too low. So here it is. Here's a little bit more information on Ripple and Circle. Ripple reportedly cleared up to $5 billion to acquire Circle. Ripple made an acquisition offer valued between $4 billion and $5 billion to the stablecoin issuer Circle. But the proposal was rejected as too low, according to a Bloomberg report citing anonymous sources. So this is Bloomberg pretty much coming out and saying, in their point of view, according to what they're seeing, that Ripple has made an acquisition towards essentially Circle USDC to buy them out. While Circle declined the offer, the report noted that Ripple remains interested in still buying out Circle. Which means, is Ripple going to throw more money at Circle and buy out USDC, essentially buy out Circle and USDC and EuroC? It's I think it's a great move because they can essentially bring that liquidity or some of that liquidity to the XRP ledger as well. The development comes just weeks after Circle filed essentially for an IPO offering. The company was previously valued at $9 billion during a failed SPAC, essentially merger attempt in 2022. While Circle officially registered its IPO with the Securities Exchange Commission on April 1st, insiders told the Journal company is now waiting anxiously before advancing further. No details have been disclosed on the number of shares to be offered or the initial price of the shares to be essentially, though the firm plans to trade under the ticker CRCL. According to the firm's S1 filing with the SEC, Circle booked a essentially $155.7 million in net income for 2024, a steep drop from $267.6 million in 2023, though it reflects a sharp rebound from $768.8 million loss in 2022. Some observers see troubling signs when comparing Circle's performance to its offshore rival Tether, which reported $13 billion in profits for the same period, most of it from essentially the US Treasury yield. Circle's issuance of USDC, the second largest USD pegged dollar stablecoin by market supply, behind Tether's USDT. Ripple entered essentially this year, you could say, the stablecoin space earlier this year with the launch of RLUSD. Neither company responded to direct requests for a comment. So Circle isn't coming out and saying that Ripple is trying to buy them out, and Ripple's not coming out either and saying, essentially they're trying to buy out Circle. So both companies are actually staying very silent on the matter of, is Ripple trying to buy Circle or is Circle trying to essentially sell themselves to Ripple? They're both very quiet on this matter. However, when asked about essentially possible acquisitions last month, Ripple's CEO Brad has told essentially Bloomberg that the firm is buying blockchain infrastructure companies, which is true. Last month, when essentially Brad was on Bloomberg and he was asked the question of, what's Ripple's next moves? What is Ripple trying to aim for in terms of, connecting traditional financial market space and expanding their foot inside this space? Ripple did say that they want to buy out a lot more blockchain infrastructure companies. And it makes sense why they would want to buy out USDC. If Ripple buys out USDC, they will have a lot more reach inside the blockchain sector, inside the stablecoin sector, and it will be a lot more essentially easier for them to compete against Tether USDT, or unless the rules and regulations change inside the United States regarding their stablecoin act, and Tether just gets essentially kicked out the same way they did in Europe. Well, either way, I think it's a brilliant idea. Elsewhere, Circle denied reports suggesting it's essentially pursuing a US federal bank charter, according to a statement from the company's chief strategy officer. He said that essentially Circle is not seeking to become a federally chartered bank or required to deposit-taking institutions. Instead, the company is preparing to align with the future regulatory requirements for payment stablecoins, which could involve registering under a federal or state trust charter or obtaining a non-bank license. His statements essentially follows a report that named Circle among several crypto firms, alongside essentially Coinbase, BitGo, and Paxos. As exploring banking licenses of these companies, only Coinbase essentially confirmed it as weighing such a move. Circle and BitGo declined to comment on the matter. While Circle has denied current plans, the firm has previously expressed interest in a bank charter. In 2022, the CEO, essentially Jeremy, told Bloomberg that Circle was already in talks with regulators as a part of his efforts to secure some sort of a charter license, or hopefully in the near future. So, Ripple seems like is trying to buy out Circle. I think it's a brilliant idea. I think they should do it 100% if they do get the chance. The numbers obviously have to be right for Circle. It seems like, the $4 to $5 billion that was offered to a Circle, they rejected it, according to Bloomberg sources and according to what the documents that Bloomberg is showing, up to a certain extent. There does seem to be, there does seem to be some truth to the matter of Ripple trying to buy out Circle. So, if you're wondering, is this news true? It seems like, yes, it's true. Ripple is trying to buy Circle out. And on that note, we have come to the endings of tonight's live. Tonight's live has ended, I would have to say, about 17 minutes early compared to what we normally ended in. It's only because I do have, and apologies about this, I do have an extremely early morning, whereas everything is happening tomorrow. There's a lot of things happening tomorrow. And I'll keep everyone in the loop of everything that's happening as time goes by, and you realize why my day is very busy tomorrow. But anyways, apologies everyone if the live show is ending about 17 minutes earlier than it usually does. Thank you so much to everybody that tunes in to every episode of the CMF Live. This was episode 306 of the CMF Live. Episode 307 will be tomorrow, just like always, Monday to Friday. You can tune into this live 11:25 p.m. London time, as always. If you're tuning this for essentially this live show for the first time ever, this live show, essentially tuning in Monday to Friday, I always talk about the most recent news that's happening around the world in terms of cryptocurrencies, CBDCs, AI, politics, regulations. These are all the vital information that you should know about. You can tune into this live Monday to Friday to be updated of what's happening around the world and how far or how close are we getting to those, essentially this digital future. We also do Q&As on this live as well, which means if you ever do have any questions, don't be shy, put it down inside the comment section or a statement to make. I always go through everybody's comments one by one and give a response. And the disclaimer of this live, as always, is not financial advice, not political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. Thank you so much to everyone who has essentially liked this live. If you watch us on X, CMF members, thank you so much to everyone who has liked this live, retweeted this live, and put a comment outside the live as well. And thank you so much to everyone on essentially YouTube who's watching this, who's also put a like and a comment outside the live as well. Let's go to the comment section before we do leave, obviously, just in case I did miss any sort of questions. Let's see where we're at inside the comment section. Hi, Miles CMF. George, good to see how you doing. How you been? Why H4 is not going up even is a good project. Why is H4 not going up even though it's a good project? It's because the market space is not stable right now. That's the reason why. It's because the market space is not that stable yet. But H4, yes, is a great project. Good day, Miles. Sorry, I'm late. I had to work late today. No problem, Mike. Good to see you, how you doing. Let's see. Hi, Miles. Richard, good to see you. How you doing? UK, yes, this is UK. Made it. Let's go, Curtis. Night, Miles and CMF. Pablo, see you tomorrow, same time as usual. Thanks, Legend. Night and day, CMF. Let's go, Shelly. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. I appreciate the time you have given us. It is a quality that is the quality that matters. Let's go, Scott. Thank you so much for that. See you tomorrow, same time as usual, brother. Joe, Night Miles, and CMF, awesome live, Miles, brilliant as usual. You're the best. Let's go, Joe. Thank you so much for the kind words. And just to point out, on tonight's live, we talked about essentially Ripple in terms of are they really buying out essentially Circle. We talked about Trump's crypto advisor saying that the crypto race is becoming like the space race. We talked about the global demands for essentially non-dollar stablecoins. We also talked about on tonight's live regarding CZ saying that AI projects, essentially majority of AI projects and blockchain projects are completely useless, and there's only some that have actual utility purposes. We talked about a Canadian firm that wants to purchase $5 billion of Solana. We talked about scammers approaching people using letters, that people that own essentially ledger devices. We also talked about on tonight's live regarding a $10 trillion boost for the ETF crypto space. We talked about a perspective that was coming from essentially the CIO of Bitwise. We also talked about on tonight's live regarding CBDCs. We went through news regarding Visa and the blockchain space. We also talked about on tonight's live regarding Trump Media Platform, which is going to be launching a crypto wallet and a crypto token. We also talked about Galaxy Digital going public, which is incredible to see another blockchain and AI company going public. We talked about Eric Trump mentioning that banks must embrace crypto or disappear in 10 years. And we talked about the Ukraine and US contract that's going to bring so much positivity for the United States in terms of the minerals and for tech stocks and then for the crypto market space. Good night, Goat. Let's go, Scott. See you tomorrow by the same time as usual. JP, good night, Miles, and all the CMF. Thank you for a great live. Let's go, JP. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Great job again tonight, Miles. Let's go, Scott. See you tomorrow by the same time as usual. Thank you loads, Miles. Have a lovely night. All. Let's go, Lena. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Good night, Miles. Let's go, Mike. See you tomorrow by the same time as usual. Share the live and leave a comment. Let's go, Scott. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Last thoughts on Algo and XDC. XDC, brilliant. Algo, also very good project as well. Thank you so much to everybody from the CMF that tunes in every single night. I hope you all have an amazing night or a great morning, depending on where you are around the world. I will be seeing everybody tomorrow, same timing as usual. Excellent, great project. Ty, it's, Celeste is an okay project as well. Rez, I'm not sure about that one, Scott, to be fairly honest, but excellent. Ty, good. Rez, not sure. I'll have to look into to give you a better perspective. Share the live and leave a comment. Let's go, Scott. I'll see everybody tomorrow, same timing as usual. Thank you so much to everybody who's liked the live, retweeted the live, and put a comment outside the live. It definitely does help to spread the CMF live show. This was episode 306. See everybody tomorrow for episode 307 of the CMF live, 11:25 p.m. London time, as always. See everybody tomorrow, same time as usual. Everybody have a great day or a good night, depending on where you are around the world.